is in the polling votes. Let me bring in our next guest, because, you know, this man is an expert on a number of things, but one of the things we're going to ask him about tonight is getting out the vote. Because in the 2007 city council race, we were sitting right here, sweating bullets. We didn't know what was going to happen. And certainly one of the major factors that made a big difference in that particular election was this candidate's get out the vote effort. He was working the phones and working the polls right up until 8 o'clock. And, you know, sometimes incumbents sometimes have a hard time doing that. Sometimes they feel they don't really need to put in the kind of mechanics that maybe a first-time candidate needs to have. Not our guest. We're going to welcome the man first elected to the city council in an upset election in 2003, and we interviewed him here on this very stage that night. Please welcome Mayor Jimmy Delshad. Welcome.
Thank you very much,
Good to see you. Jimmy, let me ask that question again.
How are you?
Tell us, how do you get out the vote? Tell us, how does a candidate do that?
First, you have to make a commitment you want to do that. While I was doing it, I got a lot of criticism. Enough, enough, enough. You're turning people off. This is what they told me. The experts were telling me. But knowing my first election, when I upset someone that was an icon of Beverly Hills, I knew the only way to really win an election is never, never take it for granted. So even to the 2 minutes before 8 o'clock, I was calling people to go out and vote. You never know. And if you notice, on that night of election, I was only 7 votes ahead with all of that work. It's just that once they counted the rest of them, the get out to vote really proved that it works.
Sure.
Because if I hadn't done the last 2-3 hours of that, then the vote would have stayed very, very close, 7, 10, 20 votes maybe. But, you know, as you know, I moved up to 100 votes or something ahead.
Right.
So it's really important not to take it for granted.
Not to take it for granted.
Jimmy, I was trying, and I welcome you as well. I was
Thank
trying
you,
to
Rudy.
verify the results and what percentage of the absentees are in, and we'll interrupt our interviews to refer to the returns. As you know, it's a tight election as of now.
What percentage has been counted? Do you know?
Those are only absentees, and it looks like it's more than half of the absentees.
Right.
Just, and I'm not a Beverly Hills High School math graduate, so I can't verify.
Well, Rudy, even if that's half the vote, and that's being generous, what's clear, I think, is that, again, if Stephen Fenton maintains the lead, he will be elected, and now it's a dogfight between the remaining 3 candidates for 2 spots.
The surprise is Brian Goldberg's vote, and that's the big surprise so far in this election. We did expect he would have a better walk-in vote than absentee vote. The fact that he's doing this well on the absentees says a lot about the nature of the campaign,
right, and also what the voters were responding to.
Let me ask Jimmy a couple of questions.
Sure.
Looking back on your election, prioritizing, and I know every element of a campaign is important, but how much of a better response, if you had it to do, would you spend more time on walking, spend more money on mailers? Which of those things do you think made the biggest difference in your campaign? Mailers, endorsements, walking, all the different things that led to your victory?
No question in my mind, it's the walking. People, whether like you or dislike you, if they saw that you took the time to approach them, on some of them I would spend 10, 20 minutes talking. Even at the end.
They didn't resent people knocking on. Nobody said, I'm not interested, don't bother me, why are you coming to my door? I've read your material.
Only maybe 1 out of 10 would say that don't bother me, I'm eating, or my cake isn't being baked and so forth. But 99% would say, you know, thank you for taking the time to come. I don't agree with you, but just the mere fact that you came. So when I left, I knew in my heart that I had touched them. And I knew that some of them, even the ones that would say, no, we're not going to vote for you, that will end up somehow when they go in there all alone to say, you know what, he really cared enough to come. No question,
Jimmy,
walking.
Let me ask you, I think I may have asked you this when we had you on the council show, but as we were saying with Elisa, running a campaign as a first-time, fresh-faced challenger is a very different experience than running as an incumbent. And particularly in your case, running in your election, an incumbent candidate, no matter what, is going to be blamed for the bad. Even if everything's great, there's always something wrong. So as a campaigner and as somebody coming up with a strategy of your campaign, how did you run your second campaign different than your first?
The first campaign, I was a fresh face. You're right. People didn't didn't give me the time of the day even, okay? Second campaign, everybody was challenging me. So my second campaign was more on proving to them that I'm the same good person that you voted before. I may have voted against you or against some of your ideas, but I'm basically a good person, and sometimes I make wrong judgment in your view. And so my tactic the second time was to prove that I'm standing on issues, not on personalities. For example, I would say this thing that they really liked a lot. I said, in 4 years when I was on city council, I never recused myself from any votes. Well, that meant a lot to them. You didn't? They said, no. I said, never took an abstain. I never, because there were people, friends of mine and non-friend of mine, and the people that elected me expected me to vote on an issue. Recusing to me was a little bit of a coward things to do. It's good for you, but it's not good for the other. So that really convinced a lot of people that it was good. It's a good person.
I have a longer question than normal. And Josh, you have better eyes than mine.
There's no news, Rudy, but I'm getting an update.
Not very much change.
Okay, nothing has changed.
Right.
Okay, here's a question with a balanced, trying to give a little both sides of the argument. Should school board candidates be endorsed by council, and should council endorse school board candidates? On the one hand, the school board depends on the city to the joint powers agreement and creating a difficulty between council members and somebody who is not endorsed or who doesn't endorse them in return creates a problem. On the other hand, you know who is effective and who is probably more than anyone else because you work with them and so you know them. So on the one hand, you have the possibility of a conflict, the conflict being that if somebody doesn't endorse you and they are the ones coming for more money, you inevitably are going to be a little less friendly, and that's very human. On the other hand, you do know which of the people running have done the best. What do you think? Should there be the endorsement?
I think it's one of the best questions I've heard you ask, and it's a fantastic question. Here is the situation. This is how I look at it. When I'm on a city site, I'm normally deciding how much to give to the schools, not whether or go beg them for something. So I am on this side giving something. If I endorse somebody and they didn't like me because I didn't endorse them and they won, it's not going to matter for me because I'm talking to the school. But on the other side, if I was on the school board, I would not endorse city councilmen. And nobody endorsed me on the school board in the last election. I never had a hard feeling for any of them because I know they will be in front of me asking for help, and I don't want them to feel like I didn't help them because I didn't like her or I didn't like him. So I agree with them for not endorsing councilmen, but I do really believe that councilmen should endorse them because we want to work with the most efficient people. It's really important to work as a partnership. School and the business and city are really partners.
Jimmy, let's talk for a moment about...
You asked the question.
Okay, go ahead. You're going to get the update. That's fine. Okay.
They refused our producers.
Oh.
They said the only time they're going to give us results is on the internet.
Jimmy, how we wish Byron Pope was running this election.